Hey, can we do this a little differently? Since
do it any way you want.
Since I don't have a neat paper with a beginning and a middle and an end. What I have is a message from the policymakers in Pakistan to invite researchers, all researchers who are part of the network of IGC, to build on the excellent work that IGC has been doing in Pakistan for the last 4 years, and help the policymakers think through some important questions in urbanization. So it's a very simple appeal I want to make. And in the process of making this appeal, what I'm going to give you is some highlights, some stylized facts about Pakistan, the economy of Pakistan. How does this work?
Just like the mic.
Okay. Okay, the context really is that economic growth in Pakistan has slowed down a lot in the last 10 years. But even in the last 30 years, it's been below the trends. Pakistan was growing at about 6% per annum right up to the 70s. And since then, the growth rate has fallen to about 4.5% to 5%. In the last 10 years, it's come down even more. There's a variety of reasons behind that. But the basic outcome is that there's substantially lower private investment now than there was before. In Pakistan, public investment has been a strong driver of private investment. Pakistan has invested sensibly in large infrastructure projects like irrigation, roads, etc., and ports. And that has brought forth private investment. But both public investment and private investment are at their lowest in a long, long time. Public investment primarily because Pakistan has been in the IMF stabilization program for about a decade. And what really cuts back in the process of stabilization is public investment program. So public investment program is completely flat. But what Pakistan does have is a surge of remittances. These are Pakistani workers working in the Gulf and elsewhere who are now sending back about $16 billion a year. This is larger than any other financial flow that comes into Pakistan, much larger than any aid flow that comes into Pakistan. But this is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it does a lot of good for the households who receive remittances. But on the other, it allows Pakistan to maintain a huge trade deficit. And the exchange rate is in equilibrium. There's no curb market rate, which is different from the announced exchange rate. And there's a bit of a Dutch disease problem going on here. It doesn't do very much for Pakistan's exports in general, but especially manufactured exports. Now, you would expect that in such a situation where your exchange rate is at an equilibrium but at a high rate, you would use some fiscal measures to support the manufacturing sector so it can start creating productive jobs. But the fiscal, first of all, the capacity to take fiscal action is highly limited because of the stabilization program. But secondly, there is what remittances has done, and the policy framework has done, is that there is a large consumption-oriented policy framework. And you look, and you see this in the way resources get allocated. If you look at the price of energy, the manufacturing sector pays the highest price for energy, whether it's electricity or gas, compared to the residential sector. In and this is true all over South Asia, and South Asia is this way exceptional. Contrary to anywhere else in the world, the energy is priced higher for manufacturing than for residential. And I can go on and tell you a whole host of ways in which the policy framework also does not compensate the manufacturing sector for the high equilibrium exchange rate. The result is that manufacturing exports are completely stagnant. So what you would expect would be the main driver of rural-urban migration, people in search of high-paying, productive jobs, which they expect to continue on in this generation and the next, which is why they would take their families to the cities. That's not happening. The evolving economic structure is such that the share of manufacturing in total GDP is virtually stagnant. The share of agriculture in total GDP is declining, the share of services in GDP is growing. So you would say, well, why don't people find jobs in the services sector if that's the sector that's going? If you look at the breakdown of the services sector, these are not the high-end IT services as you see in India, and even there, only a part of the large Indian labor force gets absorbed in the highly skilled IT sector. So these are really, little shops, little trading points, little roadside establishments where people find and jobs. These are not the jobs that result that one thinks about when one talks about agglomeration effects. So urbanization is taking place in this setting, and it is taking place at a fairly high rate. Punjab province, which is the largest province in Pakistan, has 5 million plus cities, which are expanding very, very rapidly. This was the result of the 1988 census. We are about to launch the next round of the census, and we will see dramatic increase in the population of these million plus 5 cities of Punjab. Peshawar and Abbottabad, the two clusters of KP province, they have attracted a huge amount of migrants from surrounding areas. But here we know that it's largely the security problem, which is resulting in people moving to relatively more secure districts of Peshawar and Abbottabad. So what explains urbanization that takes place in Punjab, that's taking place in Punjab? Are there rural end aspects that we need to focus, that the policymaker needs to focus on? But people are coming regardless. What do we do if people are coming to urban areas in search of jobs? What kind of policy response could there be? The interventions that we talk about would not be the standard interventions that one thinks about. So what would be the interventions? And that will require an understanding of what is causing rural-urban migration in Punjab, given the macro setting. We need to understand a lot better the impact on wages. There were some very good papers that talked about labor market interventions, but I think we really need to understand how the labor market is evolving as a result of this migration. What kind of jobs are the workers going to? What are the real wages, not the nominal wages, but the real wages when people go to these jobs? There's a lot we need to understand a lot more in these sectors before we can suggest appropriate policy response. What is happening to land values? Is land value increasing? We know that land value is increasing in highly desired areas where remittances money is coming back. And is being invested in the land market. But is the land market rising everywhere? What is happening to the slum areas? How are people acquiring land to construct housing in the slum areas? There's a lot that needs to be understood. Fortunately, the database here is good, and that can help. A lot of the response that's coming from the government is in what Ed's paper calls the downside of urbanization. There's a lot of congestion. There is crime. There is terrorism-related crime. And of course, there's contagion, as we've seen in the outbreak of dengue and etc. in urban areas. But we need to understand that impact a lot better. Now, what has been the policy? It's not that the government has not responded. That there has been a policy response. In the labor market, the government has increased the minimum wages and promises to increase it further. Is that the right thing to do? It's a popular thing to do. We really need strong, empirically grounded evaluation of this initiative before to make recommendations to the government on what exactly to do about it. The government has a big push skills development program. I'm involved with one of those. It's very carefully thought through. Is that the appropriate response to the kind of urbanization that's taking place? What's the international experience in that? And how can the skills development program in Pakistan be fine-tuned in light of that international experience? The government has also adopted sectoral focus. because the garment sector is the most labor-intensive of all sectors. Pakistan already has a $5 billion worth of exports of garments. China is withdrawing. Bangladesh has had problems. So a lot of garments manufacturers in Pakistan see the potential of expanding Pakistan's garments exports, even tripling it, provided the right policy framework is in place. So the government has been pushing the garment sector. Are there other sectors that the government can push as part of the revival of manufacturing sector that creates sustainable jobs? There's been a big push on urban transport in Pakistan. We've seen very modern mass rapid bus transport systems in Lahore, highly successful in the capital Islamabad, about to be started. There's been some IGC evaluation of the bus in Lahore and the impact that it's having on the labor market. Can we draw lessons elsewhere and see how, in this kind of a setting, what are the new lines? The government plans to expand the metro bus system, both in Lahore as well as in other cities. Is that the right way to go? What lessons are there that can be brought to Pakistan? There's been massive road widening in cities, in all urban centers. In fact, that's resulted in a lot of conflict with civil society now. Civil society has taken a view that these road expansion programs merely add to congestion. It's a different kind of congestion. It just brings more cars on the roads, and that there may be better alternatives to road expansion. What can researchers say about this? What does international experience tell us? And how can we engage the government in this extremely contentious issue with the civil society? Because the judiciary is very independent in Pakistan, the civil society has taken to the government, to the courts on many such initiatives, and with some success. We also need to engage with the civil society. Are they well advised in taking this approach in contesting governments? So there's a whole host of issues that have been opened up where the government is active. Most of the policy decisions are not as well empirically grounded as they should be in a country that is highly fiscally constrained. Now, let me just get to the last slide, which is how can IGC help? First of all, IGC can build on its past 4 years of solid work, thanks to the resourceful country director. But we have excellent relations with the government, with both provincial governments and the national government. Doors are open. Good policy advice will fall on very receptive ears. So it's a good way to bring research to policy. It's a good environment to bring research to policy. There are data sets which can help researchers do their work. Punjab has just concluded a census of all urban dwellings, and they've marked off large enterprises, medium enterprises, small enterprises, and they've done a very detailed survey of small enterprises. It's a very rich data set. It's sitting there waiting to be used by enterprising researchers. KP government wants to do the same thing. They're talking to government of Punjab in order to do a similar census in KP. They have asked for IGC help in providing, in advising on how to structure their census. So this would be a good time to engage with them. As I said, the new population census is about to be launched. There may be modules that one can put into that census even now in order to create a database for analysis down the road. So these are just some of the ways in which existing data can be used. Data gathering exercises about to be launched. Researchers can come in to be effective. So that's all I have to say. hopefully we'll get a chance to talk a little more later.